AlphaTauri revealed that from next year, they would not only receive everything permitted by the regulations from Red Bull Racing, but will also relocate their aerodynamics design staff to Milton Keynes, RB's home base. I suppose the FIA's job is going to get considerably more difficult. This is all going to happen after AlphaTauri CEO Peter Bayer said that designing its own suspension for 2023 rather than relying on Red Bull was a mistake. So, the best solution? Take everything permitted and work in the same environment. Will this count as cheating next year, and will this enable them to jump on top of the midfield? Let's find out. AlphaTauri began the season uncompetitive, but an influx of small floor improvements propelled the AT04 back into the middle battle. It also adopted the Red Bull RB19's rear suspension from Singapore forward, which improved the car's rear stability and allowed it capitalize on its floor development. It enabled drivers Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo to make a late charge in the championship, finishing narrowly behind of Williams in 8th place after spending the most of the season in the back. While AlphaTauri's emphatic floor development drew attention from competitors, its suspension choices also had a role in its advancement, and CEO Bayer admits that not using Red Bull's rear suspension sooner was an error. The initial decision to go our own way with those critical parts simply was an error, and the people who made the decision back then are not with us anymore, Bayer said. I guess engineers always have plenty of arguments why you should do certain things. But I think everybody in the paddock understood now that with this new regulation change and the new downforce pattern which is so reliant on the floor, the suspension is the next most important thing. You've got the floor, and then you've got the suspension. If those two don't work together, you might as well not go out. When asked if it made sense to try to outwit Red Bull, the dominant force in the previous 2 seasons, Bayer smiled and said, "I guess that's the big learning for us this year, yeah. But at the same time, what is tricky for us as a customer is you get a piece, but you have to make that piece work, and it's very difficult." Look at some other teams who have hired ex-Red Bull aerodynamicists and engineers. They made some quick gains, but then constant development is not as easy as it looks. We've seen in Singapore some things seem to work slightly better, but we weren't really sure, and that's one of the key aspects of technical director Jody, Egginton's team. They put a lot of effort into understanding the global concept. How can it be actually possible that this Red Bull car is so stable that it has this ability in slow corners, fast corners, straight line speed? And that's where Jody and the guys sort of had a breakthrough moment. The choice of AlphaTauri to accept Red Bull's suspension, as it has done in the past, made technological sense for its AT04. However, it may also be regarded in the context of the Anglo-Italian team moving closer to Red Bull as far as F1 regulations allow, which was a requirement from new Red Bull CEO Oliver Mintzlaff. Egginton revealed that the yet-to-be rebranded team will use Red Bull's 2023 front suspension in 2024, while explaining why the team's level of collaboration with its sister squad has fluctuated in recent years. "Each year on Synergy we've done something different since 2019, Egginton said in a statement. And some years, we've done a bit more and done something different, some years a bit less. Next year we'll carry over our rear end, and on the front we'll take the Red Bull front suspension on the current car. So, we will be 1 year behind. There have been years where for various reasons we've done something a little bit different, but we've got the opportunity to do this and the regulations permit it. So we'll do it as a number of other teams do." When asked if it's a difficult exercise to make Red Bull's suspension work on its own car, Egginton added, "Yeah, but it's got a lot of positives. We'll design and manufacture a new chassis for next year, so we've got the opportunity to adopt some parts." When the regulations change, you have to look at it slightly differently, but we take it year by year. And if the team really moves their R&D to Milton Keynes, everything will go much faster for them. But some might think it will be hard to develop a car from 2 different facilities, but according to Peter Bayer, moving AlphaTauri's R&D facility from Bicester to Milton Keynes would not be a problem. Look at Haas and Ferrari, for example. Guys, we definitely don't want to do anything illegal. But we also know that certain things are possible because we see that it's left and happened on the right. Of course, they don't want to do anything illegal, but concerns are popping up around the grid. Could they break or bend the rules by working on tables next to each other? McLaren Racing CEO Zak Brown has expressed grave concerns about the partnership between sibling Formula One teams Red Bull and AlphaTauri. As the 2023 season came to a conclusion, AlphaTauri used a series of aggressive improvements to vault from last to 8th in the constructors' standings. Meanwhile, Red Bull did not alter its car much since August, with the modifications offering AlphaTauri significant benefits in low-speed corners. An area of weakness for Red Bull opponents wondered how far the junior team might go and whether any resource sharing could also help Red Bull squeeze out its limited wind tunnel testing permit. While Red Bull F1 chief Christian Horner has denied that any regulations are being breached and the FIA has conducted compliance tests, Brown says he still has big concerns about the partnership. The McLaren boss said the following: "The million-dollar question that none of us know is how early did they, Red Bull, turn off this year's car? We know we've outperformed the others in the development race and we know we've closed the gap to Red Bull, but what none of us know is, did Red Bull stop and we just caught up, or were they still developing?" Also, we have some big concerns over the alliance between AlphaTauri and Red Bull. I think that is something that needs to be addressed in the future. So, I still think the sport has a way to go to make sure that everyone is truly independent. Teams may create technical partnerships, the most noteworthy of which being the collaboration between Haas and Ferrari, to purchase specific components like as hydraulics, gearboxes, and suspension. Concerns that Red Bull and AlphaTauri have gone too far have been fueled by AlphaTauri's decision to relocate people from Faenza to the UK in order to save money by clustering around their aerodynamics facility in Bicester. And now they could even move this operation to Milton Keynes to be even closer to Red Bull. Brown continued, "It is two teams with common ownership, which you wouldn't have in other sports. It could benefit Red Bull in a lot of different ways. There is a reason why they are moving a lot of their people from Italy. As Helmut Marko, Red Bull Motorsport advisor, has said, they are going to do absolutely everything they can to benefit from having two teams. I get that, because that's what the rules say. But I think we need to look at the governance of the sport around technical alliances. But even though McLaren and the others on the grid are probably afraid of Red Bull benefiting from two teams, they themselves are also benefiting from Red Bull's enhancements by copying it. So surely they'll be able to close the gap the coming year." And Martin Brundle feels that the history of Formula One suggests that other teams will begin to reduce the gap on 2023 champions Red Bull. With the exception of one race, the RB19 crossed the line first in 2023, prompting many to fear that 2024 will be another season without a championship contest. But Sky F1 commentator Bundle is optimistic that things will be a little tighter next time. He stated that F1 had a history of teams spreading out and bunching together, and he was convinced that this will continue in the next years. Because of Red Bull's supremacy in 2023, they were able to begin development on the 2024 car over the summer break. But the issue is, how much further can they improve? They undoubtedly have an advantage over their competitors, but the older a regulation set develops, the closer teams will be to peak performance. Law of diminishing returns: if your car's working really well, you've got less potential upside, of course, Brundle said during a Sky F1 Q&A. But you just look at it, they turned up in Singapore and even in Abu Dhabi at the last race. It's not a plug-and-play perfect racing car. So I'm sure there's some upside, and they've had 6 clear months thinking about it. But history tells you in Formula One that consistent regulations close the pack, and the pack is already quite close, as we saw with Williams or a Haas popping into the top 10 in qualifying quite frequently, so that they can improve that car, but the others should copy, catch up, innovate. Yes. In terms of who will challenge Red Bull in 2024, Brundle believes McLaren will be a contender, but he hopes there will be more than one team at the top. They have got a great driver lineup and the team seem to be in the ascendancy, Brundle said of McLaren. I'm not sure the wind tunnel will really be on stream yet for making a big change, but they seem to understand their car. Every time they brought an update, it really moved it forward, which suggests that all their data is matching up with track performance. I think for the sake of all of us, and for F1, and even for Red Bull to be honest, we need not just McLaren, but Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes, and everybody to close the gap. So fingers and toes crossed the McLaren and all the other teams can do that. And to be honest, they'll probably be able to close the gap somewhat. And the law of diminishing returns will tell us if Red Bull will be able to still outdevelop the competition. What do you think? Will they? And what about their sisters' team operations? Is it fair that they'll be able to switch the teams over to Milton Keynes and that they're taking the part of a record-breaking car in 2024? Let us know in the comments down below if you think that's cheating.